Today I'm going to walk you through how to pick the right training tool for your dog. As you can see, I've got a whole mess of stuff here. There's really no training tool that's good or bad. It's just figuring out, is it right for your dog? This is unscripted, so I'm just going to walk you through all this stuff. I just collected a huge pile of stuff that I see clients using on a daily basis. I just want to walk you through each of them and tell you their pros and cons. First, harness. Now this is not your most common harness. This is a huge style. I got this from a client, had a big bully breed dog, and it was just causing a lot of trouble. It was pulling on leash. It was a huge challenge for them. And this harness just wasn't working. And so the downside to harnesses, if you think about what they're made for animals to pull, right? Think about what wears a harness. It's usually pulling a cart or something behind them. So when you put a harness on, it equalizes pressure all over the body and the animal can pull really, really well. Doesn't mean you can't train them past that. It just becomes a lot of work. We almost never use harnesses to stop pulling. So about the only time I use a harness is when the dog either has some sort of physical issue, like a lot of neck or kind of throat issues going on, or if it's just had surgery somewhere up here, or if the dog has a lot of fear issues. So sometimes we'll see dogs that are terrified of the world, and you put a harness on, and something about it just makes them feel a little more confident, and it can help get them moving when they're refusing to walk. So generally speaking, I'm only putting a harness on a dog who's either had surgery recently, has some sort of neck issue going on, or is nervous and just needs some help just being comfortable on the walk. Okay, another common thing we see, cloth collars. These are really common. This is just a cheap little cloth collar. I don't like this type that has this plastic buckle. And the reason is they're not that strong. So imagine if your dog is pulling a lot, and they could be pulling to get to something, or maybe they're young and they got scared and they're pulling to get away from something. If this separates and it pops off, you could be in for a world of trouble. The dog could take off. So if you're using a cloth collar, I would not, generally speaking, use this style. I would use something, I've got a few other ones here. My preference is always this buckle. It's like a belt buckle, a good leather cloth collar. There's almost nothing that can make this break. So if a cloth collar is right for your dog, I would definitely use a good one like this. There's also these like really fancy leather ones. These are of course great as well. One thing to think about though when using a cloth collar is it has to be fitted well. If it's a little bit loose on the dog and if they were to back away from you, and it could happen for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's fear. You're walking and a garbage truck goes in front of you, the dog gets scared and they back up to get away from it. They can easily slide out of a cloth collar. So I do not use a cloth collar on a dog unless it's really well trained and it just has a good stable personality. If I see any issues with fear, I'm much more likely to use a Martingale. And I also use a Martingale if the dog pulls too much because this helps catch their attention better. So you can see this looks like a cloth collar, but it just has this little section here that allows it to kind of tighten and loosen. This does a few things. One is if your dog were to back up, it would tighten a little bit and they couldn't get out of it. So it's much safer, but it also allows you to give a little tug on leash and catch their attention, which makes a big difference. For us, training is not always about like discipline. And like in a human's mind, you think training is discipline. Training is saying, hey, we need a correction to say you're bad. And that's not what training is all about, right? Training is teaching right from wrong, and training is also sometimes conditioning them to feel different in a certain environment. Collars can help with that. So what the Martingale can do is when you give a little tug, it can break their focus. So if you were to say heel or no or sit or whatever, the tug is not meant to cause pain. The tug is not meant to hurt them or scare them. It's meant to break their focus. The Martingale does that much better than a cloth collar. There's some other types of Martingales. You can see this one has a little section of chain. I think I've got a bigger one as well, same deal, that has a little more chain here, and it just tightens and loosens. What I like about these, it's very similar to the cloth, but it makes a little bit of a noise as you give that tug. Some dogs hear that noise and it helps break their focus a little bit more. So definitely worth looking into. We see some clients that use these kind of slip collars. These are fine. They don't do a great job of breaking focus. So if your dog is really well trained or just needs a little tug every now and then, this can be fine. But I would honestly rather have a Martingale, especially with that chain, to be able to get some noise when you're giving a little correction than just the slip. The main advantage to the slip that people tend to like is they put it really high in the neck, and it does help direct the head. That takes a good handler. If it gets down in the neck and you don't notice that and you're giving tugs, it's not going to work and you're going to be at the base of the dog's neck, which is kind of a challenge. Okay, now this collar can be on backwards, same with the choke chain. I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's look at this first. You can see here, if I were to put this on this side here, if the dog was on this side of me and I had it like this, the collar would be coming up through the bottom, and here, now the collar would be coming around the top of it. So I always want this to look like the letter P when I look down at my side. So I want it to go, the dog's head to go through this. And so now when you let go, it should loosen up a little bit. You don't want it looking, and actually I don't know if that was on camera. I apologize if it wasn't. Let me do it a little bit higher. You want it to look like this so it loosens up on its own, not like this. It just doesn't loosen up nearly as well, doesn't work as well. So you have, it depends on which side of the dog, or which side of you the dog is on, but you always want to look at it and see the letter P. So right there, I see the letter P. As I look down, that tells me it would be on my dog correctly, and not like this. Choke chain is, it's just not a great collar. I call this a finishing collar. So if you have a dog who's pretty darn good, and they just need a little tug every once in a while to kind of break their focus off of another dog, a person, once again, a garbage truck, whatever, these can work well. But if your dog's pulling a lot, if they're coughing and hacking and choking, this is not a great collar. So we use these pretty sparingly. If a dog pulls a lot, I'm much more likely to use what's called a prong collar. So sometimes people see these and their first thought is it's meant to cause pain or really hurt. And that's not how these prongs work. They're meant to represent mama's teeth, a little nip to the neck. So a little tug and a release. I mentioned earlier the tug, it's about breaking focus. That's what they do. So a prong collar is about breaking focus. It's not about, like if you put this prong collar on a dog and you just let them pull you down the street, most dogs will pull like nothing's changed, right? They'll have this prong collar on, it's tight, it's got made pressure on, on their neck, and they're gonna pull you down the street, no problem whatsoever. These only work by quick little tugs to break focus. They're a great training tool when used properly. The biggest thing I see is people either fit them improperly, they're way too loose, and we've got a video on that if needed, or they just get the wrong collar. So this is a small. Here's another small. This is called a quick release. We're not the biggest fans of these. These are easy to take on and off, but they can also come off unintentionally when you hit that little quick release. So what I would recommend is get one that's a non-quick release, and you hook at the prongs like that. This is a small. This is a medium. We never use a large. When I say never, I actually mean never. Even on a giant dog, we just add links. So I use the small on a dog up to, I don't know, probably 40 pounds, and it just kind of depends on the dog. When they get bigger than that, I will go to the medium, and I'll just add links if needed. Okay, e-collar. This can be controversial. Sometimes people see these, and once again, all they think about is like discipline, correction, and pain, and that's not really what an e-collar is about. So the e-collar does a few things. One, let me turn it on. It has a vibration function. Super cool. The vibration function pages your dog from a distance. I don't know if you can hear that, but I can feel it in my hand and hear it. Your dog is far away, you push the pager function. When they're trained properly, they understand it and they come back to you. It can be an absolute lifesaver. Now, another thing to think about with e-collars is the correction function. People, they think the correction is gonna be like really intense, really painful, and that's not the goal. Once again, the goal, like I said earlier, is to break focus. It's not to be this correction that says, hey, you're bad, you're in a huge amount of trouble, never do that again. It's about breaking their focus off of the squirrel, the other dog, whatever it is. So you can use these at a very low level. This is a Dogtra. It goes from 0 to 127, so there's a lot of flexibility there. I usually use it at a very low level, and I always tell clients you cannot use an e-collar till you've tried it on yourself. So let me show you what I mean by that. An e-collar has to be fitted properly, so it has to be snug. These two prongs here have to make contact. If it's loose, it's not going to make good contact. Now, I have this set at an 11. 11 to 15 is kind of the sweet spot for most dogs. So if I push this, I feel the vibration. It would catch the dog's attention. Now, if I push the correction at an 11, it's going to feel a lot like a TENS unit, if you know what that is. I go to the chiropractor once a week. It really helps my back, my shoulders, my neck. And after that, they'll use a TENS unit on me. And it's, kind of electrical stimulation in the muscles. An 11 feels just like that. So I'm going to correct myself on an 11. And I can feel there, you saw kind of like a little twitch, but it didn't hurt. There was no pain whatsoever. It was just like this big twitch. Now picture a dog. They have, they have a lot of fur. The biggest issue with an e-collar is they don't work the same if they're not fitted exactly the same. So what I mean by that is if you have it in a dog here and it's hanging a little bit loose and you correct at an 11, they might feel nothing. And then you put it here at an 11 might be the perfect level for them. So they sell extensions to make sure you're always getting a good connection. The biggest problem I see people make with these e-collars, what happens is they put it on, and so here I had great connection, right? Because I have no hair here. So an 11 for me, your dog would probably need like a 30 or so to feel the same level if they have short hair. But a picture your dog is a husky. You put it on at 30 and it feels nothing. So then you might move it somewhere else and turn it up more and more and more. And then it finally makes connection and it can be way too high. So we always recommend start low, start at a 5, see what it's like, start at a 10, then slowly move up and make sure you're getting good connection. And they also say, make good contact, contact, whatever you want to call it. All of this training stuff I showed you today has a place with the right dog. The only thing I would say that I would never use would be that cheap cloth collar, unless it's just on a puppy in the house. But even then, I would just get a nicer collar and use that if needed. I hope this is helpful. Drop me a comment in the questions below if you have questions on any of these tools. Thanks for watching.